Let's talk chipping. So we're going to run through 3 different chip shots that you need to learn in order to get your ball up and down a lot more often. The first one, with any luck, is the easy one. It's a good lie with a nice bit of green to work with, so you can see the situation we're in here. Now, we're going to talk about club selection in a moment. I've probably, to start with, but there's a reason why I'm doing this, I've got the wrong club for this shot. But I want to run through the technique first, give you some little drills that you can use to really dial this in, and then we'll look at those other shots. So when I'm looking at hitting a chip, and as we said, this is a good lie, this is really important. I want the ball pretty much underneath my sternum. Maybe having that slightly in front of the ball. Either of those I would be absolutely fine with. And you'll notice that I've got a very, very narrow stance. Now the reality is, if I can keep my sternum in the same place relative to the ball, it actually doesn't matter whether I've got a wide stance or a narrow stance, but I like to have a narrow stance. I like to have my feet flared out a little bit. Just makes me feel like I'm in nice and close. I'm playing a slightly more finesse shot rather than a powerful shot. I'm also going to be stood pretty close to the golf ball, so I'm not going to have a huge amount of gap between the club and my body because I want to be nice and close. And I'm going to have my normal grip, but I'm going to have my arms pretty relaxed. Now the key thing with a chip is that we do want the body to basically play this shot. We don't really want to be using the wrists too much or the arms too much. Not saying we don't ever, because there are certain shots around this green where that would be useful, but for a basic chip we don't really want that. So what we actually want is we want this little mini pivot. And what you'll notice when I play this shot, or I demonstrate this shot, is that grip will point to my belly button, and as I make a backswing, still point to my belly button, and as I go through, still points to my belly button. My trail arm and its relationship to my body doesn't change. So let me hit a shot first. I say I've got the wrong club here, but I say there is a reason why I've done that. But let's just go ahead and hit a little chip onto that green first. So there's my setup, body pivot, take the wrists out, and there's my basic chip. So the first drill I want you to practice and use, and this is great, I love this drill, not easy to do, but really going to help you if you're struggling with that shot, is just a one-arm drill. I know, if you can't chip two-handed, I know what you're thinking, you've got no chance with one hand, but it really is going to help. Take a setup, as you would before, and just take your lead hand off and just put your fingers on your bicep and the pad of your hand onto your chest. And all you're going to do is just going to basically keep that relationship the same, and you're just going to hit little chips over a short distance. And what you're really looking for is to maintain that relationship throughout, as you can see I did there. I've got a little rotation and the heel comes up. So that is my basic motion. Now, there's a couple of rules when we're chipping. These aren't absolutes, but these are kind of things that you want to stick by. It's a good idea to land the ball on the green, rather than in the rough or just short. Land it on the green where you can. And the second thing would be to try and land it on a level piece of ground. So where those balls landed, yes, they were on the green, and yes, they were on a level piece of ground. So that kind of makes sense. I just had the wrong club. If you look up by the flag, there's quite a severe slope from right to left. So taking that 56, to get it close, I'd have to land it much further. But then I'm landing into a slope, which then doesn't really stick to that rule, it goes against that rule. So this is why we have a bag full of clubs. So if I was to take my 56, put it away, take a pitching wedge, to me that's probably still not the right club, but it might help me get a little closer. So let's see, this one should be probably a little closer than those balls, but still not quite enough. Lands on the green, goes a little further, but you can still see it's landing short, or finishing short I should say. So once we've got our basic motion, we just have to play around with what club is going to be best suited. You know, I'm landing these balls in the same place on the green, but obviously due to the loft on the golf club, it's going to roll out more. So now I've got a 7-iron. Nothing changes. I go down the handle, so I'm now 2 to 3 inches down the handle. This club now feels the same length as my wedge. I have the ball middle, just back, narrow stance, body controls it, but now we have a club which with any luck has a better amount of rollout. I'm not sure how I'd get that ball anywhere near that flag because it's on such a severe slope, but the distance on that was perfect. It's just gone down the slope. So you can see I've got 56-degree wedge, pitching wedge, 7-iron. One technique, one setup, change the club based on the situation to get you close. What would you do if you're in the rough? We're going to cover that now. So let's look at this shot. I mean, I've literally walked back 2 paces. So effectively it's the same shot. The green is the same, the flag is in the same position, but I'm in the rough. Now it would be easy to look at these 2 shots and just think they're the same. So the same approach would clearly work, wouldn't it? So I'm going to grab my 7-iron, I'm going to take the same setup and hit my little chip onto that green. Not a great result, clearly. Wouldn't be happy with that because I've got to face that same shot again. So why was that such a terrible result? Well, the club basically got snagged in the grass. The lie, it wasn't great, but the rough is longer grass. So there's more grass around my board, and that particular lie, and I've kind of given myself a similar lie there's a lot of grass behind the ball. So due to the way I set myself up, I was promoting a relatively shallow approach. So a shallow approach means that the club enters the sand, it's not sand, is it? It's grass, enters the grass, but then it's got to get through that grass to get to the ball, and therefore the speed gets reduced. There's always something between the club and the ball, and we end up hitting that one. Now, because of that, how do I get the club through the grass? Well, I would use more speed. More speed would mean that that club would get through the grass. So suddenly, more speed. But now we go too far. So we can't just add more speed. We have to look at a different approach. And so this is why we can't just have one chip shot. We have to be able to adapt, and we have to be able to read the lie. What I would be doing from that situation is I'll be changing a few things. So I'm going to go into pitch and wedge. So that's clearly more loft. And when I look at my setup, I'm going to have the ball much further back. So now the buttons on my shirt, you know, land maybe a width of a club head more in front of the ball, but that's not a position. I could move this further back or a little bit less for, depending on the severity of that lie. So don't think of it as a position. Think about this as something you have as an option, and you can make this as extreme as you want. The reason that we're doing this is because what that will do, if you look at my setup, it will create a more up and down motion. So I start to create this steeper approach. I miss out some of that grass. There's always going to be some between the club and the ball. I can't get away from that, but I can miss out some. So I'm able to be more consistent with my strike. That's really important. Around the greens, being able to control your strike is the thing that will really elevate your short game. Ball back, handle forwards, gives me steeper, gives me a better strike. But my pitch wedge is obviously de-lofted. So how much is it de-lofted? I don't know. It's a little bit of experience, a little bit of feel. I would say my pitching wedge in that setup is going down to maybe an 8 or a 7. So we're back into the loft that we know is suited to this shot. But to create that loft, we've chosen a pitching wedge to do it rather than actually a 7-iron. So now it's really important from here that I take my setup and I have some practice swings to really feel and sense, you know, okay, how thick is that grass? Do I need to apply a little bit of grip pressure to make sure the club doesn't flip over or snag? This is all about trying to create practice swings which enable me to sense what's going to happen in that shot. So once I've done that, I've now got my pitching wedge. I'm expecting this to come out more like a 7-iron. Ball goes back, but effectively the same things apply. I'm going to land it on the green, just right the flag. And we should see that ball now make that journey around to the left. And it's going to go all the way down that slope again. Little bit strong, but you can see how that flight was more like what we saw before with the 7-iron. I just chose a pitching wedge to do it. So I have to have variations on my chip. We're going to finish off with one last shot, which I call the release chip. So the release chip is something I've seen Tiger talk about numerous times, and I've seen him show how he plays it and kind of where he uses it. So I'm going to talk you through it. It's a little bit more an advanced shot, but I like it, you know, for someone to practice and have in the bag in certain situations. Let's talk about that certain situation. I'm just off the green. The lie is good, and it does need to be a good lie to hit this shot. It needs to be relatively tight grass. Nice bit of flat green, then a big tier up to the flag. Now I don't want to be landing the ball in that tier, as we said. I want to land it on this front area. This is a great shot when you need the ball to release. And let's say you've got a premium ball. I use the TP5, premium ball, brand new wedge, softish greens. You've got three things there which are really conducive to spin and grab, you know, a new club, a soft ball, wet green. So this is a technique and a shot which kind of reduces the spin of the golf ball and enables you to roll it back there. Sometimes we can play this shot and it can just grab, and we don't need it to grab, we need it to release. So we're almost going to basically play like a little mini draw. I've got my pitching wedge for this. Now the ball won't draw because it's not in the air for long enough, but you might actually put a little bit of right to left spin on it. So I'm going to basically take my setup. I'm going to have the ball a little bit back of centre. So again, my buttons are slightly in front of the ball. That puts a little bit of lean in that shaft, de-lost my pitching wedge. Apart from that, it's a normal setup. But I actually feel as if I take the club a little bit on the inside and I let the toe of the club rotate over this way. So with my trail hand, I'm sort of feeling like I let it climb over the top of the club shaft. If I were to do that with a 7-iron at full swing, it'd probably turn a little bit right to left. This won't, simply because we've got a low ball flight. So let's go ahead and hit one, and we should see this land short of the ridge and then kind of up and over the ridge. So ball back, inside, and let that toe turn over, and it should release a little bit more with less backspin. That's probably a little bit of a better result there, but you can see my end position, the toe has worked over. And whilst, you know, that first shot we spoke about, we said it's very much body controlled, this one is, but I'm feeling there's a little bit in my hands as well. There's definitely a little body pivot, but I'm really feeling like I'm using my hands a little bit to kind of manipulate the club through the ball and sort of get it working, this sort of toe working over to get that ball releasing up the green. So certain situations, a tear in the green is a great place to use that. When the greens are soft, as I say, premium ball, have a go at that. It's a little bit easier to get the ball to roll out.